Hi friends, and welcome to my science studio. Today's lesson will be split into two parts. First, we'll meet John Dalton and explore the beginnings of his atomic theory. Then we'll jump into the periodic table and see how everything fits together. So let's not waste any time and we'll just dive right in. Before I even explain what the periodic table is all about, we have to first understand what matter is. And matter is defined as anything that has mass and takes up space. And honestly, everything around you right now is matter. The table you're sitting at, the computer or iPad you're watching this video on, your coffee cup sitting next to you, even your glasses, that is if you're wearing any at least, all is considered matter. Now, all matter is made up of these tiny building blocks called atoms. And since I love biology, I like comparing this to cells. Just like our cells are the basic units of all living things, atoms are the basic units of all matter. The difference, though, and this is important, is that atoms are not alive in the same way that cells are. But the comparison could maybe help you remember their role. Now, in this video, I'm not really going to talk about the properties of matter. I'll save that for another lesson. The one where I'll get into the energy and motion that exists in gases, liquids, and solids, all that fun stuff. But as a quick refresher, here's a visual that shows you how the particles look in each state. It's a simple way to see how atoms exist in all forms of matter, whether that's a solid, a liquid, or a gas. And the person who really figured out that all matter is made up of these tiny particles called atoms was an English chemist and physicist named John Dalton. He was the guy who proposed the modern atomic theory, and this theory gave us a few important ideas. First, he said that substances called elements are made up of identical atoms. So, for example, all the atoms that make up carbon are identical to each other. But the atoms that make up something like boron are not identical to the atoms of carbon. You see, that's what makes each element unique. Next, he explained that substances called compounds are formed when you combine two or more different atoms together. So when atoms join forces, they form a completely new substance, a compound. And one of Dalton's most important ideas is the law of conservation of matter, which says that matter cannot be created or destroyed, but instead is conserved in the process. This means that in any chemical reaction, the atoms you start with are the same atoms you end with. They've just been rearranged. For example, in this picture, you can see two hydrogen atoms combining with one oxygen atom to form H2O. None of the atoms disappear or magically appear. They simply reorganize to make something new. And the easiest way I can explain this to my students is with a cake example. Let's say you want to bake a cake for your best friend's birthday party. What do you need? You need eggs, flour, milk. Maybe you want to add some chocolate chips in there too. You mix everything together, you put it in the oven, and voila, you have a cake. But did the eggs, the milk, the flour, or the chocolate chips just vanish? No, of course not. All of those ingredients are still there. They've just been transformed during the baking process. And that's exactly how chemistry works. In a chemical reaction, your atoms don't just disappear. They're still present. They're just rearranged into something new. Before I wrap up part 1 of this lesson, I want to point out one quick thing that my students often struggle with, and that's the difference between a molecule and a compound. A molecule is just two or more atoms bonded together, and they can be the same or different. For example, oxygen gas, or O2, is a molecule made up of two oxygen atoms. But a compound is a molecule made up of different elements bonded together. So something like H2O is not just a molecule, it's also a compound. So in other words, all compounds are molecules, but not all molecules are compounds. Thank you guys so much for joining me today in this lesson. Now that we've reviewed what matter is and how atoms make up everything around us, we're ready for part 2, exploring the periodic table of elements. Thank you guys so much for listening, and if you found this video helpful, please don't hesitate to like and click that subscribe button. Help a teacher out. I hope to see you guys next time back in my science studio.